this meeting. All right. Sarah, did it pop up?
Yes.
Okay, magnificent. Okay, guys, so we're here. I am so excited. So today we will be talking about the explosive child and collaborative proactive solutions. I had to think about that. He changed it up a little bit. It used to be collaborative problem solving, and then some things changed, and the title is a little bit different now. So we will be covering that today. Unfortunately, Dr. Greene will not be able to join us. We're already working on rescheduling him for the future. But you know what, guys? I'm kind of pumped about that because there is so much to cover. So much to cover that I'm excited to have 2 hours to talk to y'all about everything today. And then once we actually get Dr. Greene here, we can pick his brain about the really tough stuff that's, you know, way beyond me and Sarah. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. Let's see. So I want to start off with thank yous to everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Leona, Phyllis Law Firm. Thank you for sponsoring Family, Friends, and Duchenne. Oh gosh, I love doing this. I love sharing sharing my misery with other parents. No, that's not it. I love having people along this ride with me, and I love teaching and sharing and knowing that we're in this together. And I really appreciate you sponsoring this group so that we can have these amazing speakers and all of us can come together and support each other. So thanks 1,000 times over. Thank you also to Doug and Jennifer with Cure Duchenne for helping me advertise. Thank you to the Facebook groups, the pages who have helped me advertise to get everybody here. Team Approach, thank you. And lastly, and I kind of hinted to this already, thank you guys for being here, the participants, you know, hanging in here even without Dr. Greene, but just being along on this ride with me, like I said, being the parent of a child with disabilities or special needs, it can be really isolating. And I've encountered some struggles last year, and I was chatting with Leona one day, and she was like, you know, those sounds like patterns of families with kids with special needs. So she's a special needs attorney, by the way, guys. So she's familiar with this. She's also the mom of a child with special needs. So I was like, oh, Leona, you're so wise. So I just started looking at these patterns, and I'm just glad that y'all are here with me. It's good to know I'm not alone. So thank you. And Sarah. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Sarah has been my son's physical therapist for, gosh, 5 or 6 years now. And she's been the one patiently talking to me over and over and over, bearing with my questions about a lot of this child developmental stuff and the relationship with the child. And, you know, he's got a lot of social, emotional, cognitive challenges. And she's just been a big support for me over and over and over, helping me navigate different ways and brainstorm ideas. So I could go on 1,000 times. But thank you, Sarah. And I just want to give a quick little bio about her. And this is off the cuff, I don't even have it in front of me. Sara McMahan is a pediatric physical therapist. Gosh, I think your son said 34 years, is that right?
Yes.
Wow, that's experience. She's also the owner of the T.E.A.M Approach, which is a pediatric physical therapy clinic in Houston, Texas. Let's see. And then she's also, oh, okay, I'm gonna goof this one up. She is also a doctoral candidate. You do it, Sarah.
So I am I'm a doctoral candidate in a program with it's an infant and early childhood development with an emphasis on mental health and developmental disabilities. So I'm in the candidacy right now, finished my, and just working right now on my dissertation. Proposal has been accepted. And so hoping to get that done by the end of the year. That would be wonderful. Been working for a long time. So
that would be exciting. That'd be very exciting. Okay, great. So now to the nitty gritty. The things that I really want to tackle today, guys, this is kind of my outline. Examples of challenging behaviors, in case y'all needed examples. The philosophy behind Dr. Greene's approach. Why do some kids have challenging behaviors? The 3 options, he calls it plan A, B, and C, to solve these problems whenever problems come up with the challenging behavior. And we're gonna tackle plan B in detail, which is the plan that he promotes, which is a cooperative, collaborative approach. I wanna spend some time about if this works when you've got this plan with an adult who's doing it with a child. What happens when that child goes to school or another caregiver and they don't use the strategies? What happens? What do we do? How do we fix that? So that's another one. Specific questions. So I'd really like to take Dr. Greene's Explosive Child Plan B and shine the children with disabilities spotlight on it. So as y'all have questions, type them in the chat. I've got a bunch in here already. Sarah and I will be chatting back and forth, but I really want to take time and look at that and customize it to us because it's hard. Okay, let's see. So let's start off. Sarah, do you have anything else to add in there? No?
I don't think so. I think a great outline and yeah, I think ready to get started.
Okay, fabulous. So let's see. So, ooh, where's this book? Ha ha. Can y'all see it? Da-da-da. Sorry, I've got the Zoom background. It's not really working. Okay, the explosive child. This is what Sarah told me about years and years ago. And I read it through cover to cover when she first told me, when I had 1 child and a little bit of free time. Now I've got 2. And so as a refresher, I just went on YouTube. He's got a great playlist on there. And I watched through that. It was about an hour, hour and a half to kind of recap things. But what he starts off with is really talking about his philosophy. And I love his philosophy. It's basically kids do well if they can. And it's just so freeing. You know, the thing that I love so much about Dr. Greene's approach and about Dr. Delahook's approach too, is it's no longer us versus them. It's us working with our kids to accomplish something and to help them grow. So.
And there's no blame.
Yeah. There's no blame. I tried the authoritative parenting. I tried lots of things, and actually I should go back to that. I tried lots of things with my son's explosive behaviors. So some of the stuff that my kiddo, I love him. My kiddo does. He's 10 years old. He has Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Some of the things he does is he yells and screams when we can't find dirty socks for him. He, the tactile feedback really irritates him and frustrates him. So he has challenges with that. He has challenges with these tiny images on books. It may or may not be OCD, kind of depends who you talk to given the muscular dystrophy component. So he has to turn books around or else he kind of has this big anxiety freak out. He won't eat around them either. And that started to be a power struggle. There's a few times when there would be a food package on the table and he's like, I'm not gonna eat dinner with that around. So I had to choose to, yeah, you are, I'm mom. Or and put it away. So we've got some behaviors like that too. And then this is a really fun one, the inflexibility, transitioning between events, or even just getting off the video game to doing something else. Or if friends have to cancel last minute, it's just really, really hard. And it can be a good 5 or 10 minutes of responding and reacting and expressing. So Sara, are those challenging behaviors?
Challenging behaviors.
Challenging behaviors.
Challenging behaviors. And I think, you know, the rut that we get caught into with children is the kids do well if they want to. And that's where the blame comes in. And so we put the onus on the children. And if they wanted to, we don't understand where these behaviors are coming from. So we believe that it's a choice, that they're making a choice. And many, I've heard it actually in a variety of different seminars that I've been to by different child psychologists. And, you know, kids were not born to tick you off. They weren't. And so their behaviors are a manifestation. They're coming from somewhere. So I think changing that perspective of it being a choice, that they're not doing well because they don't want to do well, and changing it to that if they could, they would. If they could do well, they would do well. They want to do well. Kids want to please. They want you to be happy. They want to be happy. It feels good to behave. But there's challenging behaviors are coming. They're a communication, their way of telling us that something's wrong, something's going on. And I think it's our job, as me being a parent, I think it's our job as professionals who are working with the kids to really, you know, be responsive to that. And that's the other part of what Dr. Greene's theory is. It comes from that good parenting means being responsive to the hand you've been dealt. And you have a child that would do well if they could, but they're not because they're lacking something. And it's our job as, again, parents, people who intervene, to be responsive to that and to figure out what they're trying to communicate, what they're trying to let us know that they're lacking. You want me to go on, Lindy? You know me, I can go on.
Yeah, I know you can. I know you can. I want to back up a little bit about some of the things you said right there. It does. He says it really comes down to these two competing, you know, philosophies. Is it a skill-based philosophy or is it a motivation? And depending on which one you pick is going to decide what you do about it. And you're right. I love his being responsive to the hand you've been dealt. You know, that's all about the individualization. And Sara can read us a paper or tell us a paper about individualization and kids. And one size isn't going to fit all. You're going to have to customize it. And that can be really challenging once we start tackling the education part of it, when you've got 25, 30 kids in a classroom. But yeah, the making the kid wanna, if he wants to, then he'll do it versus the skills. If you look at the wanna paradigm, then what that leads you into is giving incentive, assuming, you know, contrariness, that he's doing this on purpose. You know, kids aren't born just to tick us off. It's going to lead us into a reward and a punishment system. And Dr. Greene, I'm quoting him from his YouTube list. It's flat out wrong. That's what he says. It's flat out wrong. This is not about motivation. Kids do well if they want to. It is preferable to do well.
And when the methods fail, then people blame the parents. When those methods fail to change behavior, change those challenging behaviors, then the onus comes on the parents that we're doing something wrong. We're being too permissive. We're being too patient. We're not giving enough structure to them. We're not providing them with something. So if the blame doesn't go on the child, then the blame shifts to the parents. And that doesn't feel good for anybody either.
Exactly. The poor parenting, you know, they think the parents are passive. This is his little list: passive, permissive, inconsistent, poor discipline. And it's so nice to hear. Stop blaming the parents. It's not the parents' poor parenting. And he brings up, you know, you've got some parents, here's the proof. You've got some parents, they do the same parenting with multiple kids. Some kids have beautiful behavior. Some kids have challenging behavior. It can't be the parenting. So, hey, sweet girl, you gonna come help me? So yeah, and then if you're a parent and you believe that, then you know you believe that the parenting is the problem. Then what happens is the parents step it up a notch. They start to get into a more of a punishment system. You know, that persuasion, convincing, you know, the punishments can ramp up, and you know, then the challenging behaviors explode. They get even worse. So that's really challenging there. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
Just speaking to the same thing as as I was introduced actually to the explosive child, it was actually more of a personal journey as far as parenting. I have 4 children. And yes, my first child was a breeze and responded to all typical parenting types of things, really didn't even have to do a lot of parenting. She was just a child who had the skills to meet our expectations as parents. She had the skills to do that. Then comes our second child with sensory processing difficulties, with ADHD, who we parented exactly the same and did not respond. He didn't have the skills to meet our expectations. And it took us a long time. It does, because again, all what you'll read is that token systems, reward systems, you're not being consistent enough, and we felt as if we were, and we had battles. And we heard from him that my brain is making me do this. My brain is making me do this, which again, as a parent is very frustrating. But then I picked up The Explosive Child and I started reading it, and I cried. I cried after reading the first chapter, because it really talks about the lack of skill. It talks about the fact that he could do well, he would do well. And I, as a parent, like, oh my gosh, I know better. I know I'm a professional. I know better. And I was missing the lack of skill. I was missing the fact that these things needed to be addressed for him to do well, and that we needed to collaborate with him because he couldn't make his brain do what we wanted it to do. And we needed to figure out that solution together.
So let's jump into that a little bit more, Sarah, and let's talk about the skills that these kids are lacking. Whenever you look at the skills paradigm, what you've got is basically adults putting demands on the kids, and the kids can't meet it. And Dr. Greene is so great about this. He says, don't compare your kid to other kids in his grade. Don't compare your kid to other kids his age. You gotta look at just this kid and understand and identify his problems. your kid's not going to look like other kids. And this is part of that individualization. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that before we start tackling the specific skills themselves, the individualization component?
No, I think when we talk about the individual skills, I mean, it's important. And once we get more into this theory of identifying those types of things, then, you know, we can talk more, but this is just an important piece is really recognizing the lagging or the lacking skills is an important component of this.
So the skills specifically that he talks about are developmentally delayed cognitive skills. So things such as flexibility. I know that one. Adaptability. I know that one too. Frustration tolerance and problem solving. These are the big ones. Specifically, they're social, emotional, and behavioral delays. And I love this. He talks about it. Well, here, I'll give an example, then I'll kind of talk. I'll give you his example. So I liken this to my son. My son has muscular dystrophy, so he's got some weak muscles. That's a short version of it. And he has dysgraphia. He has a hard time writing. And it's as if I were to ask him to start writing in cursive today, right now. All right, go ahead, do it. He doesn't have the skills. He doesn't have the muscle strength. He doesn't have the motor planning. He hasn't had the lessons. He hasn't been taught any of that. So it's just, I'm putting demands on him that he just can't meet. Dr. Greene uses the idea of delayed readers. People who are kids that are having problems reading, and he says, you know, he's already motivated. He wants to know how to read. He wants to understand the concepts. Sticker charts aren't going to help this kid learn how to read. And if you just ignore, I know, sweet girl. If you don't address the problems, he's not ever going to learn how to read. But if you address the problems now, then he'll be able to do it successfully for a long time. So teaching skills. I want to see if this is a good time to kind of dig into some of Dr. Greene's worksheets so y'all can see some specifics. And let me see if I can share my screen. We are going to over here. Nope, over here. So Leona, can you pop in the link in here real quick for the, oh, I had it here. The ASLEP, how does he say it? Come here, sweet girl. Here it is, the paperwork. So livesinthebalance.org. Can y'all see this right now?
No.
Can y'all see this?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
See?
No.
No.
I can't.
Oh, I know, sweet girl.
Yes.
Yes.
So well, Lindy is working with Lainey. So these are all some paperwork that Dr. Greene has on his website, Lives in the Balance. And I mean, it's a wealth of information for people. I really recommend that you go to it. And so he has a list of lagging skill and unsolved problems. And it's a really important piece of what he does. He does this with all of the kids that he works with, has them use this worksheet. And it says at the top, it's not a test. It's not the brief that, determines whether you have the executive function to be able to do these things. This is really discussion points. These are trying to figure out from your child where these lagging skills are. And, an important piece of this as well is really thinking about this in terms of problems, because, when you've got a child with challenging behaviors, I think the hardest thing to do is to do step by step, because you just, it's so overwhelming that you want it to just all go away. You want a solution. You want a quick solution that's going to make these challenging behaviors go away. And so it's difficult to kind of see the forest through the trees, because you're just in the survival mode and you're just trying to get through day to day. So this is a way of really kind of slowing down and having some discussion points, thinking about it in terms of unsolved problems. What exactly are your expectations for your child? What do you need for them to do during the day? What is causing the biggest issues in your household? And I love the fact that he talks about taking the top 3 and really working on those priorities. Because if you try to solve everything at once, it's going to fail, and you're going to think this method fails as well. You generally have to take this step by step, figure out what it is that you would like for your child to be able to do during the day. Think about it as an unsolved problem, and then think about what skills are required to make that activity happen. And what is your child lacking? So this is just a nice worksheet to go through and to think about what it is that your child is having difficulty with. Dr. Greene really emphasizes the fact that we're not talking about behaviors here, and that if we start to bring in behaviors, we're going to frustrate everybody, because absolutely we want the behaviors to go away, but the behaviors are really not the issue. The behaviors are your child's communication of what's going on with them. And so we really need to look at the unsolved problem. And again, for example, you want your child to be able to, to transition from, playing on his iPad to eating dinner with the family. And so what could be, we're not going to address the fact that he screams and kicks his legs. We're not going to address the fact that he gets to the table and throws the food on the floor. Those really are not what we're going to address. We're going to address the problem. We need for him to meet our expectations. We need for him to get from his iPad to the table to eat dinner with the family. So we go back to all of those things that could make that happen. Is he having trouble with the unpredictability of it? Is he was it all of a sudden, and he's having difficulty with the flexibility piece of changing that mindset? Is he having difficulty knowing what you're asking him to do? Are you saying, okay, buddy, shut off the iPad, and not really preparing him for what you want him to do after that? Is he having difficulty with something at the table that he's trying to avoid? So, it takes a little bit of time to kind of weed through this and to figure out what exactly is going on with your child that is preventing that from happening. So this gives a nice just checklist of things that you can go through yourself and try to figure out what exactly could be lacking in his repertoire of skill that's causing that activity not to happen or being resisted.
Beautiful. So did y'all just get through all the lagging skills?
I didn't go through them one by one. I really talked about the fact that this is less about behavior and more about the unsolved problems. And
okay, great.
That, part of the solution to this is really working on the problems one by one versus trying to take on all the behaviors at once.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. Something that helped me whenever I started this, and he's got a plethora of worksheets in there. It's so funny. In his videos, he always says, there's a ton of information. It's all free. Just go on my website. And it is. There's tons and tons. He's got hours and hours of videos and parents calling in. He's got like a, what do they call it? Not an iPod. Podcast. Thank you. And so there's lots and lots and lots of resources here. And he's got 2 websites. Leona, can you plot both of them in the chat? So yes, it's about the unsolved problems. And so let me see if I can pull up the paperwork here. There was one that was really helpful for me. It was like a checklist. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I don't think I can. But it was great to help you really identify all of the skills your kid needs to work on, because it seems so abstract, but when you start to see this pattern over and over, it was helpful to me to really identify those. So something I wanted to pull back on real quick is talk about these challenging behaviors. Let me see if I can stop screen sharing for a second. Okay. I love this. He, at one point in his videos, he pulls back and he says, you know what? We all have challenging behaviors, even adults. And there's a funny double standard, because adults are allowed to yell and swear and scream when they've got demands placed on them that they can't meet, but kids aren't. Kids aren't allowed to do that. So it was an interesting kind of twist that helped me have a little bit more empathy there. So I can kind of reflect and see how I feel and the challenge it is for me when I'm in a situation like that. And then to imagine you're a kid and you've got this authority over you and you've got this pressure. And there is that threat, that punitive, that go back to that punitive, I can be punished, something can happen to me sort of thing with these challenging behaviors. So that stress just kind of builds and builds and builds. So let's see, this is something else he says, and Sarah, you may have touched on this already. Challenging kids aren't challenging all the time. Did you tackle that at all?
Not yet.
There are certain situations, and it can be, in fact, quite predictable when you will see the challenge behaviors and when you won't. You know, it's not a problem with the kid, he says, because it's not all the time. It's in very predictable circumstances. And so that's part of what the worksheets will help you do, identify those unsolved problems that are triggering that behavior. And I think I heard you say, Sarah, and I want to echo it most definitely, behavior is communication. Maybe you said this a while ago. Behavior is communication, and these poor kids, this is the only way they know how to communicate. A lot of them don't have the cognitive skills to, and the self-reflection to say, da, 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 da. You know, a lot of adults don't either. So those are wonderful things. I want to take a second and make 2 points before we move on to some other steps. Dr. Greene, so I know we're a group here filled with kids with disabilities or challenging behaviors, but it's interesting because Dr. Greene says that he doesn't really like to focus on diagnoses, because if you've got a kid with ADHD or you've got a kid with autism, you can't just fix that. You can't just give them a pill, make it go away. And if it's, you know, a genetic thing, well, he can't fix the gene pool, but what he can fix is these unsolved problems. So Dr. Greene says, I really like to focus on the things I can fix. And so again, the challenging behavior is indicative of a problem. And the great news is we can help those kids solve those problems. That makes sense? Yeah. So Sarah, take a second and talk to us a little bit about the control that kids with disabilities really try to have in their lives and why.
I think that in particular, because again, you know, Dr. Greene works with a lot of different children, and I think our particular population of children that have known neurodevelopmental challenges just adds another element, another twist to the whole thing. And one of those reasons, I think, is because they're adults throughout their lives have been the decision makers for what happens to them. They are the ones, the adults have imposed their will on their children for their whole lives. And it's with medical testing, with appointments that they have to go to, with things that they have to deal with. They feel that everything is imposed on them. And so for whatever reason, we are always surprised when our children are grasping for control. But it's not surprising. It's not surprising that our kids would be grasping for control. If we think about it ourselves, if we're in the situation where we're having all of these other people telling us where to be, what to do, what's going to happen to us, at some point we're going to say, whoa, I'm making my choices here. And it's not about like, oh, you know, you can't have your kids make all the choices all the time. It is that feeling, though, of these kids that have these unusual expectations placed upon them, in addition to those lagging skills of not being able to handle that. So we've got kids with executive function deficits. We've got kids with sensory integrative deficits. We've got kids with language deficits, which that's so much of a primary, with emotional regulation deficits, with just in general slow processing. And they were imposing all of these things on top of them. And we're surprised that they are resisting. We are surprised that they're not doing or meeting our expectations. And we shouldn't be surprised. It's a lot for children, and children, particularly with challenges, will feel that lack of control and will really grasp for it in any way they can.
So that's actually a perfect segue to the three options that he talks about, plan A, B, and C. Whenever you have these challenging behaviors or you have unsolved problems, what can you do about it? And the first one, just like you said, Sarah, is the adult imposing his or her will on the child, telling him what to do. And this is what Dr. Greene calls plan A. This is traditional parenting. This is what we've done for years and years and years with our kids. This is what some kids can respond to. They've got the skills to meet the demands. Okay, I'm playing my video game. Mom comes in, says, okay, time for dinner, time to go right now. Gosh, there's so many skills that it takes in order to accomplish that. You know, Sarah listed a slew of them. So plan A, telling kids what to do, imposing your will. Excuse me. Something Dr. Greene talks about, which I love, is even if you have a child who can respond to this, what you're teaching the child over years of doing this is that might makes right, is what he says specifically, that those who are stronger are going to be in control. And years and years and years of this teaches them this is how society works. So the way you're going to be able to have power is being stronger than somebody else, having more power. And he's not a big fan of that. That gets into a lot of personal philosophy and thoughts about humankind and how we're supposed to interact together. But that's just an interesting thing to contemplate whenever you kind of zoom back and you think about what this parenting this sort of relationship communicates to the child. He says 100% without a doubt, if you're using the countdown, all right, I'm gonna count to 3. 1, 2, 3. This is without a doubt imposing your will on the child. And, you know, in my opinion, it ramps up the stressors even more, because now you've got this clock on you that's saying, okay, if you don't suddenly have these lagging skills in 3 seconds, then there's going to be some sort of punishment. So that is his plan A. It's in video number 5, and it's in chapter number 6 in his, gosh, I wish y'all could see this book, in his book.
Lydia, I just wanted to kind of go down his list of that, you know, behavior modification versus collaborative proactive solutions. And with Plan A parenting, Plan A parenting is punitive. It's adversarial. It is unilateral. One person is making a decision. It's typically reactive. It is not skill building, and it is definitely not relationship enhancing. And so whenever I talk to parents about these, you know, different types of working with challenging behaviors, there is no doubt that behavior modification works. I mean, it's just we're animals, and we know from Skinner's box and from, you know, all those other things that we know that behavior modification can change behaviors. But we're talking about problems, and we're talking about building skill for the future. We're talking about being able to not just extinguish behaviors, but to really build skill and to really enhance relationships. You don't want a child that you're always adversarial with, that you're always, you know, having this because I'm the disciplinarian and, you know, we just always butt heads. You can enhance your relationship with just a different way of parenting. I hear a lot with the Plan A parenting, you know, that's the way I was raised. That's what worked for me. This is, well, he's got to respond to me. I'm the parent. The child has to change. And that is Dr. Greene's whole thing, that we have to respond to the hand we've been dealt, and that we may not have a child that is the same as we were when we were children. And so we have to be responsive to that. We may not have a child that has the skill to meet our expectations that we're laying out. So that's great that you want the child to change and meet your expectation. But if they don't have the skill to change and to meet your expectation, then where are you getting? Nobody's happy. Nobody is getting what they want to have done, and you're having a chaotic household. That's what happens. So Plan A parenting is the behavior modification piece of it, but not the skill building piece of it, not the relationship enhancing piece of it.
I love that, Sarah, and you've touched on truly a beautiful part of his philosophy, which is the unity. You know, it's not that conflict anymore. It's not the us versus them. It's pulling your kid in and hugging them and saying, man, I know this is hard, and let me help you. And it can be really hard if you were raised in a different paradigm, because that's all you know. And that's what our culture does right now. It's still a very punitive, authoritative culture that we're in. And so it can be hard to do something different if you don't know anything different, which is why I'm so excited to do these webinars. I've seen the change in my son and in our relationships, our relationship. I can't remember if Dr. Greene said this. It may have been, it may not. But there's somebody who says, you know, people use this plan A parenting. And then when teenagers come around and suddenly you want to talk to them, they slam their door and they hide and they don't want to talk to you. And people wonder why. And the reason is, well, y'all haven't been building your relationship. You haven't been practicing these skills. You've been telling them what to do for years and years and years. And suddenly you just want to, have heart to hearts, and it doesn't work that way.
The other thing Dr. Greene mentions, I'm sorry, Lindy.
No, please. I was gonna ask for your input.
No, the other thing that Dr. Greene talks about is that sometimes we get concerned about our kids' future, and well, they're going to have authoritative bosses. They're going to have people in authority. Somebody's always your boss. I own my own business. I still have bosses. I have to respond to people, and so if we don't teach them to respond to authority, what are we doing for our children? But what we're really finding, and statistically and in the future, and actually what they're doing in our school systems too, is really focusing on that collaborative problem solving. And if you notice in your kids' schools, there are more groups that are happening. Our engineers are group process. They have to be able to work. That's what our whole Microsoft Teams is about, and all of our collaborative types of systems that go on. So even our society is kind of changing the expectations of not necessarily having the authoritative piece of it. Also, the authoritative piece is more about just blindly following authority. And I think that as we move and we're progressive and we need to move on as a society, we also need people that are going to have skill to respectfully and appropriately challenge boundaries, question authority, and be able to work together towards solutions. And so that's really, instead of wanting our children to just respond to authority, I think what we really want to do is to be able to build those skills in our kids so that in the future, they are able to handle those challenges. They're able to know what to do when they're faced with that authority.
I love that you brought that up, because there's a phrase in there that really sticks with me whenever he talks about, well, you're going to have a boss one day. You're going to have to do what he says. And what he says is, do you really want to sacrifice your relationship with your child in the chance that he's got an authoritative boss one day? It's like, no, you can tackle that later. Don't sacrifice your relationship with your child in preparation for some theoretical future event. So I love that you brought that up. And I love your insight, Sarah. We homeschool my son for a bunch of reasons. And so I don't have my finger on the pulse of education so much. And I really appreciate all that you bring with that. So plan B.
Do you want to go to plan C first?
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Plan B is the big one.
Yeah, for sure. So plan B is what Dr. Greene does. We're going to hold off on that, and we're going to jump over to plan C. So what he says for plan C, and again, this is all in the book. It's all in there. What he does with plan C is he says, this is just picking your battles. If you go through that paperwork online, you're going to see you've got a slew of unsolved problems, and you've got to prioritize. You can't tackle 20 or 30 at one time. And guys, when I filled out that form, I seriously had easily 30, easily. And that's what I got tired of doing. And I was like, okay, point made. I need to start doing this. So you've got to prioritize, and you've got to figure out what's the most important. You've got to figure out what problem is causing the most chaos in your house and tackle that first. He uses the example of brushing teeth. But you know what? I'm okay if you have to put brushing teeth on the sideline a couple weeks, even a couple months. If there are bigger things you've got to tackle. If there's something there that's going to put your kid over the top and you're going to have to admit them in an hour to a mental health facility. And sometimes it gets to that point. Some of the challenging behaviors that he talks about, and they're all on a spectrum, some of them are self-injurious. Some of them are injurious to other people. It can get to that place. Dr. Greene says, I am okay with a couple cavities. I am okay with no teeth brushing, in order to tackle bigger things. And so plan C is, there's kind of two ways you can do it. He's a proponent of planning ahead of time and thinking through things ahead of time and talking to your kid ahead of time before that explosive, challenging behavior is right there in front of you. So for him, he says, get your list and plan ahead of time what you're just going to scratch off the list. And if you're co-parenting or you've got somebody else in the household, let them know too, so that you're not saying, oh, okay, we don't need to do that. And the other person's kind of, clued in, they know what's going on. He says, just drop those expectations for now, for teeth brushing, for, I'm okay with the dirty socks for now. I'm okay with him wearing the same socks for 5 days in a row right now. There's a point when they get stretched out and he's uncomfortable with them. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's break in a new pair of clean socks. But I'm okay with it right now. And that's my personal choice. We've got bigger things to tackle.
And it's not giving up. I think that that's what everybody thinks about with the plan C. It's not about giving up. It's not about giving in. It's not about saying that it is acceptable. It's putting it aside. It's not talking about it right now because you have bigger fish to fry, because that is not the primary issue in your household right now. And so that is definitely on a list and something that as you progress and you build skill, you can tackle in the future. But it's setting it aside for right now and just making it a non-issue until that skill is built and until those other more prioritizing or prioritized problems are tackled.
Most definitely. I'm glad you brought that up. It's not giving in, because sometimes it will look like that to other adults. If you say, okay, kids, time to brush your teeth, and your kid says, I'm not going to, well, then you can do heat of the moment, in emergency is what he calls it, emergency plan C. What you do is you say, okay. And that can look a lot like giving in. That can look a lot like letting the kid have his way. It can look a lot like inconsistent, permissive parenting. But it's important for you to know you've got a plan and you're tackling the most important thing first. You're not going to teach your kid 12 years of history all at one time. You're going to build 1 year at a time and one part of that subject at a time. And yeah, Sarah, expectations are a good thing. You want to have expectations. That's not the problem. If you can say, okay, kids, go time to brush your teeth, and they go do it. Okay, cool. There's no problem. Just carry on. It's when your expectations outstrip the skills that your kids have. That's when it's a problem. And that's when you've got to decide if you're going to do plan A parenting. Hopefully you won't, which is, I say so, you're going to do it. Or you decide plan C, we'll tackle this later. Or if it really is important to you, then you move into plan B. Before we get to plan B, Sarah, do you have anything else to say about plan C?
No, I think I can say it afterwards. I don't know how many therapists are out there, but this method is what I use quite a bit in my therapy sessions. And, sometimes from an outsider looking in, they believe that it looks like I'm very permissive with the kids that I work with and that I let them get away with a lot. Yes, I let them get away with a lot because that is not my battle right now. So if they are going to say something that wasn't necessarily appropriate to say to an adult, is that what I'm really going to address right now? If I'm getting done and getting to what I need to have done and have the expectations met that I need to have met for that day? No, as a therapist, there are some things that I'm letting go, but I'm being effective in the area because I've identified my problems and I've decided that those are the ones that we're going to work on. So, so it can be used, again, I know primarily parents here, but it can also be used in therapy sessions as well.
I love that you bring that up, Sarah, because It is. It's like magic when you're with my child. You can get him to do things. He's happy. He's engaged. And, you know, we tried one or two places before we found Team Approach. And it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. A lot of combativeness. But he enjoys seeing you. He enjoys being with you. You know, there's that respect component that comes out that you know, we'll learn more about in the Plan B. Yeah, choosing which fish to fry and
building that relationship, because
yeah.
I can't be effective if they don't come back. And, you know, I can't be effective if, and it's going to make your life as a parent more miserable if your kid is crying and fighting every time you mention that you're going to come to the team approach. So we build that atmosphere of relationship building, of skill building, and supporting those things that you're lacking.
I love that. All right, so well, that's an hour. Imagine if Dr. Greene was done now. Now is when we get to the nitty gritty, the Plan B stuff. This is the good stuff. And guys, let's see. I've been trying to keep an eye on the chat. Have there been any questions that we've missed so far? Just to clarify everything up front. Anybody have any hand raising questions? We good? Cool, okay. And by the way, this is being recorded. It will be accessible. You will want to watch it approximately 10 times. So just take whatever you get today and go with it. Okay, Plan B. So in Dr. Greene's playlist, and again, if you can hear him talk about it, he is wonderful. He's got this down. It's a performance. He's wonderful. This is in video number 6A. It says Plan B details, and it's in chapter 7 in the book. So, so just like a Plan C, you've got the planned Plan B, doing it ahead of time, or you can do a reactive Plan B. And I'll talk about the planned Plan B first. So Dr. Greene says over and over, he is in the business of crisis prevention. He doesn't want the crisis to happen. We want to identify what's going on and talk about it ahead of time so that we can avoid that crisis. You know, if you were able to listen to Dr. Della Hook's webinar, I love it because these two pieces fit together so well, the co-regulation and the cognitive skills. And we're going to focus on that in detail a little bit later. But if you've got a crisis, you have so many emotions that are going to explode and take over any sort of thinking cognitive skills. So you might already have cognitive delay. And then on top of that, you've got emotion on top of it. So we are in crisis prevention so that we can all think clearly. Adults alike, along with the kids. So he's got 3 steps, and let's see, I wonder if I can pull this up again.
I just wanted to mention again while you're pulling that up that Plan B parenting is basically collaborative problem solving or collaborative proactive solutions, that it's non-punitive, it's non-adversarial, it's collaborative, proactive, skill building, and relationship enhancing. So those are the biggies when thinking about Plan B parenting. You want all of those things to happen: non-punitive, non-adversarial, collaborative, proactive, skill building, and relationship enhancing.
Magnificent. Can y'all see this? You can? Okay, great. So this is up on his website. It's the Plan B cheat sheet. And it's real funny. In his video, he says that he hates the terms he's chosen. He doesn't like the empathy step, the adult concern step. He doesn't like his terms. So he's really funny when he talks about it. But there are 3 basic steps. You've got empathy. And by the way, this is all done ahead of time. You got to get your kiddo, get the other kids settled, squared away, 10, 15 minutes where you're not going to be interrupted because you want to sit down and chat. These are the 3 things you're going to be tackling during that time. And if you're a newbie, if you're just starting with this, if you've got a relationship you've got to really repair with your kid, You just might do the first step. So let's tackle that. So first of all, he says instead of steps, he'd really rather call them ingredients to how we're going to do this collaborative problem solving. First one is empathy. He said he would rather call it information gathering. So he's trying to gather information from the kid to understand the kid's concerns or perspective on an unsolved problem. He says, don't assume you already know what the kid's gonna say. And that's a big part of this. No assumptions. I mean, go into this conversation really wanting to learn about your kid's experience. So he says, don't go in there thinking you already know what's gonna happen. And this is his script. And he says he's really been honing the script because he's found that parents or adults need it. So this is what you say. Let me see if he has it in here. Okay, right here. I've noticed that, insert problem here. What's up? So for example, I've noticed that you wear dirty socks for days on end. What's up? He says it's super important just to have the neutral unsolved problem. And this is where all of that work that you've already put into identifying these problems and you put them on a worksheet, this is where you, it pays off. You just plop it in there. He says, be sure that you are not blaming. It needs to be really neutral. If it's not neutral, the kid's gonna clam up. So one of his funny suggestions is don't say this. Don't say, notice you've been making my life miserable lately. What's up? Don't do that. Don't point the finger, don't blame. If somebody were to introduce a conversation with you like that, what would you do? You just clam up. So, he says with this section, your goal is to understand the problem. And you ask a question, kid replies. If you don't understand really what the problem is yet, then you've got to keep drilling. I don't know where the drilling section is here. I can't find it, but that just means asking more questions. Just ask again. And sometimes with kids, cognitive delays, emotional challenges, sometimes they need time to think. He says, give them space. Start counting in your head. He was working with a kid once, 30 seconds of silence. Don't ask again, don't push. What Dr. Greene said was, after about 30 seconds, he's like, it looks like you're really thinking. And the kid's like, yeah, I am. So read that body language. And he gives lots of good tips in that video, number 6A again. So get the information. Try to figure out what's going on in the kids' world. Sarah?
So I think the big question in this area for a lot of our parents is, my kid would never do this. I can't, he is not cognitively able. He is not, doesn't have the communication available for this. I can't get him to sit down long enough to even say this to him. We're never in a situation where this is proactive because we're always in crisis mode. There are all of these parts to it. So obviously this does have to be modified in some of the situations. Number one, I would, if you can, start out with Dr. Greene's, I have automatic lights. Start out with his suggestion, because sometimes you're really surprised. You think that your kid would never be able to do this, but they may just never have been asked for their opinion before. And so start out with this if you can. Even if their language is delayed, try to present this to them in this way, and whatever difficulty that you're having, and see if there's any type of response to that. The other recommendation that I have in trying to figure out these lagging skills, if you do have a child that is not cognitively able or language communicative enough to really go through that initial step, those words, is really a lot of observation. And that's a lot of just sitting back, reflecting, thinking about what just happened, what was going on, what, even if it's keeping, a few notes and thinking about what was the situation, what expectation do I have for them, and he didn't do it, and these are some ideas here. So I'll take the dirty socks, and if you did have a child that had behaviors every time you tried to change their socks, but you weren't able to go through this, then you go through your checklist of lagging skills. You go through your observation of it. Sometimes it's even a trial and error. But before you get to the next steps, it is important that you do trial and error to try to figure out actually what's going on. Because I think what happens sometimes is that we move ahead in these steps with our theories, that we think that it's a matter of, we think we've got it figured out. I'll give an example. A child who will not use a potty at their school, and they are resistant to that, and they can't really communicate or tell you why. And if we use a theory, we might say, well, the flushing is too loud. They don't like the flushing. So we'll come up with all of these auditory types of interventions to try to help them build the skill to tolerate auditory, when it might not be at all. It might be the fact that they feel posturally insecure when they're on top of the toilet that they have at school. And if we provided them with a smaller potty, they would be able to handle that skill. So before we come up with this whole plan based on what our theories are, I think it's really important that we spend a lot of time in this step, regardless of the skill level of your child, in trying to figure out what those lagging skills are that are causing him not to be able to meet your expectations in a certain area. And again, that's where professionals can help. If you do see an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, speech pathologist, psychologist, teacher, where they can really help you to hone in on these things. This is our problem. We're trying to figure out what skills are lacking, and let's work on this as a team and figure this out.
We have, excuse me, we have a question before I open that up. I just want to jump in real quick and say, Sarah, I don't know if you remember when my son was really young, we were having issues with him not wearing his undies. He wouldn't wear his undies, and I kept problem solving. Well, maybe it's this, I got this style of undie, I got that style of undie. And one day, and he wasn't at a place he could really explain it. One day I came into you and I said, Sarah, his undies are too small. He's outgrown his undies. Do you remember that? It was so funny.
Really simple solutions if we just ask. There was just a comment in the chat too, as Melissa, one of our therapists here, bringing that up, that these things that are labeled as behaviors, and once they were understood, it's easy to problem solve some of these things and to collaboratively problem solve if they're accurately identified. But sometimes we just need to ask them, what's going on?
Let's see. So we have a question. Are you comfortable with me turning on your video or saying your name? Estella?
Oh, yes, I think I turned it on.
Okay, would you like me to turn on your video or pin you?
Yeah, sure.
With the recording? Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So what's your question?
My question is if what I notice is actually the behavior, is it okay for me to frame that in the neutral observation? So an example is, my child likes to play video games. When he loses, he screams like somebody's killing him. So is it okay? I've noticed that you scream when you lose in the video. No, not okay.
Because typically, again, the kids want to do well if they can. Paying attention to the behavior itself can make them very defensive because they don't want to talk about the behavior. It doesn't feel good to scream. It doesn't feel good to make a fuss. It doesn't feel good to create chaos. I mean, we think that that's what's happening, but it's really not. It doesn't feel good to the kid. They don't want to do it. If you start to talk about the behavior, then you start to focus on that behavior and it becomes about the screaming. And you're not trying to behavior mod. You're not trying, you want to figure out the solution to that problem. You have an expectation for them and you're trying to meet that expectation. So it goes beyond the behavior, and pointing that out to them and bringing that as part of it is, it really muddies the water and it really makes them a little bit more defensive.
So how would you frame that, Sara?
So say the situation again. He screams.
When he loses, he likes to play video games. When he loses the video game, he loses it. So that's what I notice. So when I'm thinking of the phrasing, I've noticed that I'm having difficulty of not putting the behavior in the blank.
So, but I notice every time you lose a video game, it's that, or I notice that you're having difficulty when you lose a video game. So it's really the behavior becomes you're having difficulty because it becomes about the lagging skill. So I notice that you're having difficulty when you lose a video game. What's up? And it could be, I think that they're cheating. I think that it makes me feel bad about myself. I'm such a loser. You could come up with all of these other things, but again, all of those things are not about the screaming. All of those things are about the skill that he's lacking that causes him to scream when he loses the video game. Is it the inflexibility? Is it the video game is over and he didn't want the video game to be over until he won the game? So it could be all of those things that we really don't know. And if we focus on the screaming, we really never get down to that lagging skill.
Thank you. Yes, because if I solve it by removing the video game from him, it's kaboom. So
right. Because
Estella, some synonyms that I like to use are, I've noticed it's been challenging when blah, blah, blah. I've noticed it's been tough when blah, blah, blah. I've noticed you've had a hard time when blah, blah, blah. And maybe even taking out the you. I noticed it's been hard when blah, blah, blah. So, Google up challenging, see what kind of synonyms you can find. But I always felt kind of strange wrapping that up at the beginning with what's up, but it works. It just kind of makes it easy. It kind of gets in the kids' language and it just gets the communication across.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Our pleasure. Let me see if I can remove spotlight. All right. Okay. Okay. Anything else for the first step, the kids' concern, Sara, before we move on to the adult concern? No? Okay. Can y'all still see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the adult concern is the next step. And again, there are 3. And it looks like he's updated the sheet to say the ingredients, which is what he says he prefers. So you've got the kids' concern. Now you're doing the adult's concern. And he says it's really important not to do these out of order. You want to do the kids' concern first, because if you do the parent concern first, then you're shutting them down. They think it's going to go into the old, well, they're just going to tell me what to do again. They zone out. They're not engaged. They're asked to listen, which can be in and of itself a lagging skill. So, ask them first. And again, if you put your concern out there first, you might have concerns about something that doesn't exist. You might be assuming that you know what his concerns are and you have concerns about this imaginary concern. So, on and on and on. So kid first, always. So adult concern, Dr. Greene's so funny. He says, this can sometimes be the hardest step for adults because they don't know what their concerns are. They just don't know. He has in here, concerns can fall into one of two categories. In his video, he talks about 3 different categories. So one is safety. Are people safe around these behaviors? The other one is about learning, if it's, affecting school or that atmosphere. And then for number 3, he says how behavior is affecting oneself or others. So he says, if you're not really sure what your concern is, just kind of pick one of those and be a little bit vague. But I would encourage you to really start to identify your own concerns, because again, it's moving out of that punitive paradigm of just do what I say. And if you've been enforcing that paradigm for long enough, you might not know your reasons. It just might be reactive. This is how this is going to solve this problem, but you may not have clearly defined what's important to you for parenting and what you want to guide your kiddo with. So the adults get their concern across, and it's so funny. His phrasing for the adults is, the thing is, or my concern is. And I love it because there are times my son now, so we've been doing this for about 5 years. There are times now my son, he doesn't know he's doing it, but he's starting off this process with me. And he'll say, so Mom, my concern is, I'm like, oh, I love this. This is wonderful. Or I'll hear him with his 2-year-old sister trying to do this model. And it's so heartwarming, because, if you've got a 10-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl, might makes right can fit in there very easily between those sibling relationships. But it's great to see how much they really pick up when they model. And I have never sat down and run through this sheet with him, never in a million years. He's just picked up on how it is that we solve problems in our house. And it's wonderful. So super important. Don't start talking about solutions yet. Y'all are going to do the solutions together. You're not going to do his concerns, your concerns, and then you impose your solution. You're not going to do that. You're still just getting everything on the table. Sarah?
And remember that this is about problem solving, that this is about creating a win-win situation. So I think that sometimes when we get to this step, it's, well, I want them to stop screaming. I want them, my concern is that they are, that they scream all the time. My concern is that my kid won't follow my directions. My kid, that's way too broad. This is a problem solving approach to things. So they really have to be specific. It really has to be, what is really the expectation? That's, I like to use that. What expectations do you have for your child? What specifically do you want to achieve? So I need for him to transition from the car to school. I need for him to complete that. And so again, not paying attention to how they're doing it, not paying attention to, without the screaming or without I need for them to transition from the car, to have a smooth transition from the car to the school. And then if you can frame it in that way, it's so much easier to achieve versus the having these, big problems. Because bottom line is, challenging behaviors, not challenging behaviors, kids, I've got kids from age of 15 to 29 now, and, they still do things that I don't have my expectations for. So they always have these challenging things that come in. We are not going to solve that issue of making kids behave 100% of the time. They just don't. But we can have a happy life, and we can have a life that they're able to do skills without always having this chaos going on. But we have to be specific in what that we're asking them to do and what our concerns are, what those expectations are.
And that's a great point that you brought up. Be as detailed as possible. He says specifically, if you're broad, the kid's not going to know what in the world you're talking about, and you're not going to make progress. He says, even though you're specific, it's going to feel like you're going to have to go through 1,000 things. And he says it's going to be a lot. It's going to take time. But if you don't tackle them, the behavior is never going to get better. It's never. So take little pieces at a time, be detailed so that you can trigger a memory in the kid's head. And that'll really help them reflect and think about it. And then they can really engage in that problem solving with you. And again, no sarcasm, no lecturing. And man, Sara was great about this. She's just, Sara, you're wonderful. Thank you. Something Sara taught me a while ago is to really choose my words wisely and be brief with my son, because he's got, ADHD, but it's secondary to his diagnosis. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Regardless, he doesn't pay attention real long. And Sara, you must have been watching me talk to him, I don't know, during therapy or after one day. And you said it so kindly. I don't even remember how it was said now, but it was something to the effect of 1 or 2 sentences, and after that, he's going to zone out. So I've really taken that to heart, and it's been very helpful. You're exactly right. I can't really talk more than 20 seconds before he zones out, or he interrupts, or he walks away. So yeah, I think I would encourage that also in the adult side. Just as you gave that kid as much time as he needed, you be as brief as you can. All right. And then lastly, the invitation step. It's all of this green. And this is the brainstorming step to brainstorming solutions to address the problems. And the way I look at it is everybody familiar with the Venn diagram? You've got your 2 circles. You see circles? And you figure out where 2 circles overlap. And what you're trying to figure out is all of the kids' ideas for solutions, all of the adults' ideas for solutions, and trying to figure out, well, which of those solutions that we both have work for both of us? And how can we go through them? Again, it's not, okay, well, here are those problems and this is what we're going to do about it. No, don't do that. Don't do that. That's just back to plan A. Whenever you do that invitation step, ask the kid first, well, what are some of your ideas? Let the kid brainstorm first, because this is where they start to practice those skills. This is where they start to make the progress. The other day, it was yesterday. Oh my gosh, it was yesterday. Okay, we were having a meltdown. My son is highly reactive to mosquito bites, like you wouldn't believe. Mosquito bites, he scratches, they get infected. Not good, highly reactive. He does not like the way the bug spray smells. And so last night, my husband was telling him, either we go outside, you wear the bug spray, or we stay inside. And he didn't like either of those options. And FYI, this is not plan B. It's my husband learning how to implement plan B. Kiddos coming in. But my son offered his solution ahead of time. Hey, sweetie. After he had his crying and his meltdown, because he couldn't handle those demands. He didn't like those 2 options. He said, okay, well, Mom, I can do the bug spray, but you do it outside and just spray here, here, and here. And so I can really see, I didn't have to invite him. I didn't have to problem solve. And by the way, this is, that was emergency plan B. We, now that summer's here, we need to tackle this unsolved problem ourselves. But your kid will start to really come up with these neat ideas. And I know there've been several times I've been surprised by his creativity. Sara?
Well, and I think that it's just, again, this is important to recognize the fact that it has to be a win for both. And it has to be an acceptable solution on both parts. It's not about you modifying or adapting. It's not about them forcing their way through something. It's about coming up with a mutually acceptable solution to this problem. Again, I just kind of bring in, it's more difficult. I totally understand that it is much more difficult with kids who don't have the communication. They don't have the verbal communication. They don't have the ability to problem solve through some of these things the way that it's written out here. But it doesn't mean that they can't be part of that solution. And I think that that's where we have to really come in with our observation skills. This is at the very end of this, he talks about the fact that if this doesn't work, if the solution doesn't work, then we go back again and we come up with a different solution. So sometimes if you have kiddos that, again, don't have the verbal skills, don't have the ability to really come up with these things on their own, well, we think about what might be a mutually acceptable thing that could happen. I get accomplished what I want to have accomplished, and he seems to have a sensitivity to this. And so we're going to try it this way. Okay, that didn't work, and we're still having difficulty accomplishing this activity. So we're going to go back to trying again. Let's figure out what the lagging skills are. Let's figure out where the, what the problem is. Let's figure out how we can come up with that solution. So it does take a little bit longer. And Dr. Greene himself will say, this is not a quick solution. That's, if you're looking for a quick solution, this is not it. But we have to always remember that this is about skill building and this is about relationship enhancing. I know that, like, for me, sometimes I'll get to the point when I reflect on what I do with kids and what I do with my own kids. It's like, oh my gosh, enough of the hokey stuff. They just need to do what they need to do. And I go back to my plan A, and it's like, no, I just got to be an authority. I've just got to do it. I've got to tell them that this is what they need to do. And it doesn't work. It's such a disaster. I have like this terrible either session with my kids, or I have a big blowout fight with my own kids. If you are truly working on that skill building and that relationship enhancing piece, that collaborative model, it just takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes going back to the drawing board sometimes to make that happen. But in the long run, it gets accomplished what you want to have accomplished in a way that is acceptable to them, and they're starting to build skill, and they've got this great relationship with you, so that when things happen in the future, the rewards and the punishments are really about your relationship, and they're close to you, and they want you to be happy. They want to be happy. They want you to be happy. And so they're much more willing to come up with these solutions because they've got a good relationship with you, versus not having that relationship to begin with, and then things continue to be headbutting all the time.
Exactly. And that's, teenager years, if you can start this earlier, I imagine it really pays off there. I'm glad you brought up the nonverbal again, Sara, because he does give a couple tips in the paperwork. I don't know if it's in the paperwork. 5 fingers. So if you have a kiddo who, let me see if I can make it come up, who's not really engaging, then what you can do is start to kind of guess. And you can toss out ideas, if the kid doesn't want to talk, and you can toss out ideas and start off goofy. And he says, have the kid hold up 5 fingers. If whatever you're saying is true, pretty true, sort of true, not true at all, or not very true, not true at all. So this is a way you can kind of start to break the ice, like I said, start off goofy, and then, and that can help things. I know he also has, or he used to, he also has for some of the kids, here it is in the pictures. So if the kids just need to point to pictures to help, if they're not very verbal, to help them explain what some of their problems are. And maybe you could even point to them, you know, if you've got a kid who's using, what is that called, Sarah, when they use their eyes to communicate with the computer?
An eye gaze.
Yes, thank you. If they've got something like that, or some sort of communicative assistive device, you could point to this and they can give you a yes or no. And so this is a way to kind of sort through some of that language barrier as well. And so these are some possible solutions. If you're cold, okay, well, do you want to get near a heater? Do you want to drink something warm? Do you want to put on clothes? So again, these are just examples of the incredible resources that he's got on his page. He's really thought this out. He's been doing this 20 to 25 years. So yeah, we've got these resources here too. All right, anything else, Sarah, about the Plan B itself, or does anybody have any questions before we move on into school, and then some really specific questions about the kids with disabilities? I know I've got a lot that I want to bring up.
I just wanted to mention, again, one of our, Melissa, one of our speech pathologists was talking about the time that it's taken her to work through with some particular kiddo that she works with, and that it's not always perfect. You know, it's not 100% all the time, but certainly their relationship is so much better, and their ability to get things done is so much better. So I just wanted to really give examples of that I mean, I used to work with a young girl who, I mean, when they used to go to doctor's appointments, the doctors used to give mama all of these, you know, reward and punishment things, telling her she just needed to be more structured and consistent with her. The therapist, other therapists she was working with at the time would, she was an aggressive young girl. She would kick and pinch and hit, and so therapists would hold her down, you know, and really be very punitive and take things away. And that was just never my approach with her. And it was really all collaborative with her. And again, sometimes the therapy session doesn't look like it's very productive, but bottom line, what we ended up doing is we came up with a solution that she gets her activity done, and then I get my activity done, and she gets her activity done, and then I get my activity done. And not once did that child hit me, kick me. Not once did we ever have a real issue with her wanting to come to therapy or wanting to participate, and we built skill so much more effective when we were just collaborative about it. And we weren't, and I got my stuff done and in a mutually acceptable way for her as well. So just examples of things that can really, really work if you do the work ahead of time, if you really come up with those solutions. In the long run, it's really the way to go. And I can't underemphasize the relationship building. I am a relationship-based person in general. I think that that's what life is all about, is relationships. Bottom line, of everything else, life is about relationships. And we have to make that the focus in every aspect of our lives, is to make sure that our kids have the skill to build relationships, and that we model that in every way.
I love that, Sarah. I absolutely love that. The connecting, you know, with my son with the Duchenne muscular dystrophy, you know, eventually he's going to have a lot of physical challenges to overcome. And so visibly, people may not want to come up to him just because he's going to look different. And then just emphasizing all of these other skills about how do we maintain those relationships. It's huge. before we move on, a question here is about the age. And this was a question that Sara and I have been brainstorming about, and I wanted to ask Dr. Greene. I'll put out my theory, and then Sara, I'd love to hear yours. And this also goes into how collaborative, proactive solutions mesh with the co-regulation. Where's that spectrum and where do they overlap? And again, our previous webinar, Dr. Della Hook, with co-regulation and helping with the emotions with the kids and helping get them out of this stress back into a place where they're happy and they can think. So, you know, we've got unsolved problems, we've got stress. The kids can't think, so you co-regulate and you help calm them down with your own calming energy and your own calm nervous system. And then, you know, eventually you want to start including those cognitive skills. So when they're really young, you can't really do this kind of cognitive CPS with like an infant, right? Those language skills aren't there. But what I can say, so, you know, I think when they're really little, you've got this bigger chunk of co-regulation. And then I kind of just imagine it kind of narrowing down as they get older, that need for the co-regulation. And then the reverse. Does this make sense? Should I draw y'all a diagram? Kind of like two triangles on top of each other. Oh, I can't even show y'all. Okay, I'm gonna assume y'all know what I'm talking about. So what I think can be done is I think you can start to model this CPS, it's collaborative proactive solutions. I think you can model it from the get-go, and then the kids will pick up on it and participate as they can. So I've been using this since our son was 4 or 5. And he wasn't always able to participate in all of it, but he could do a little bit at a time. And that's what it's about, building skills, just learning a little bit and then participating more. I can tell you that my 2-year-old daughter, you know, while I don't sit down and do stuff like this with her, she's picking up on the pattern and the rhythm and how to work things out with people. So I would say, model it. They'll pick it up when they can, when their skills have gotten to the point where they can start doing parts of it. And then it'll just progress from there. Sara?
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I think that we underestimate how young, because obviously things need to be developmentally appropriate, but I think we do underestimate how young kids do have problem solving skills. And so, you know, we're really, the way that we learn in general, human beings learn, is really about past experiences. I mean, we learn by building on things. And so sometimes it's really a matter of pointing out to kids early on, well, that didn't work. And so, and, you know, building on something, building their skills, ensuring that they have that, what, you know, the hindsight, the ability to really look back and on what just happened and think about it and reflect on it. And really, again, it's amazing, but toddlers really can understand that to a certain level. I mean, that's how they learn. They put a square peg, they put a square block in the round hole and it's not fitting. And if kids are lacking skill, they continue to do that. And so you help them to figure out to put it into the square hole. And so we support that. And that's collaborative problem solving in itself. And that's building on skill. So we can find those really age appropriate, developmentally appropriate ways. And really the goal is early intervention. The goal is, if we can do this with all of our kids really early on and they build these collaborative problem solving skills, then we're never going to develop those behaviors in the first place, because they will be in such a pattern of problem solving and working with you to come up with solutions that these behaviors won't happen. Now, does that happen? I mean, that's a lot to ask, and it does. I mean, we go back to our go-to, which is our plan A always. And but I mean, I think the more that we can do, even with our toddlers in that problem solving, that collaborative problem solving, the better skilled they'll be as they get older.
And I love that you bring that up, Sarah, because Dr. Greene does say, I use this model with kids with challenging behaviors and kids without challenging behaviors. They all need to learn these skills. And so, you know, we can put those relationships at the top and we can work together collaboratively when we're all adults. Just because you have a kid who can handle plan A, who's got the skills to handle being told what to do when, doesn't mean that he's going to be really good at interpersonal skills and problem solving. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, any more questions before we move on to the school and individualization? Let's see if I can stop my screen share.
Yeah, because I'd really like to open it up to people. We have, Lindy, about a little less than 20 minutes left. And you know, this is kind of the opportunity. One of the things that I've loved about these webinars is really this time afterwards where people just talk and, you know, kind of share ideas and specific situations, things like that. So if there's anybody that has any thoughts or from what we've talked about so far, that would be great to share your own personal experiences.
I'm trying to pull up my, my meeting again. Let's see. Stop share.
While she's working on that, I think one of the things too, that questions that I get asked, or even experience wise of in what situations this is not working, or what the obstacles are sometimes to implementing something like this. I think, you know, getting your spouse on board with it can be difficult. And I think, you know, my husband in general has always been the great voice of the male, and has, you know, it's like, well, this is the way we think. And so it's really, I mean, it's, you know, the collaborative work with your spouse, your co-parent, in really kind of being on the same page with us, and wanting to intervene in the same way, because it can be very difficult to have one parent who is following this model and having another parent who's being authoritative, because it's, number one, mixed messages to the child, but also I guarantee you the collaborative parent builds a better relationship with their child. And then you've got that problem between your spouse or your co-parent, or is that you're building that piece of it. Well, he likes you better. Well, you give him everything he wants. That's why he likes you better. And so you really need to make sure that you collaborate with that person. You know, the other obstacles are, I think probably Lindy, you were going to get into that, is like school personnel and you know, really introducing that to them, and resisting those. If you find that the token systems and those things are not working at school, you know, and if they're only school people, I don't mean to offend, but sometimes we've got our limited repertoire and we've got our tools that we use in school, and that's all we know. And so we continue to use it over and over again. And it becomes the child's problem of why they're not responding to it versus our problem of needing to change the situation or the environment that we're setting up. So it's really, you know, making sure that we work with the other people that are involved in our child's lives to make sure that we're all on the same page with that as well.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Let's see. I do have other topics and questions we can tackle if anybody has a question and you'd like to pop on or put in the chat. Okay, great. We've got one right here. Do you want to be video recorded, or do you just want to do audio in? Can you type it in? Oh, did you decide no? Okay. Oh, I said your name. I'm sorry. So
just unmute.
Did you take your hand down? Do you still?
Yeah, sorry. I used to get virtual with my kids. So when you get called, you have to lower your hand. So, Sarah, earlier you said that pick your barrel and choose the one that cause more chaotic in your life. And for example, like if we choose one, and I done everything that I could, but like I noticed that you have this and this, and then the child is maybe because she's 4 and she doesn't have a lot of challenging behavior. She's just a normal, typical neurodevelopmental kid, and she refused to talk about it, or she refused to move on. So do you know how long and when for her age I should give up and then to choose to tackle it another day? I mean, like do smaller step for her to able to do it. The incident happened is like she climbed on a shelf at a bookstore and everything fall down, and she chose to went behind somewhere and to hide there, and refuse to come out or refuse to talk about it or refuse to say sorry. And at some point I don't know what to do, and I don't know whether that I'm pushing her too much to say sorry or should I just leave. And this behavior come up a few times. This is just one of the incidents happened very recently.
Mm-hmm. So I think that it's, again, one of the things Dr. Greene talks about is being proactive. And so I think that if you're seeing a pattern that this has happened, you know, several times now, that you're seeing some sort of pattern happen. What I hear you saying is that, you know, they're finding places in, you know, in bookstores and places to hide and things like that. So I think that going through those steps, if, you know, if they're not able right now to tell you what's going on, you know, going through it again, but in a way, in a place where your child is in a good place, not as like immediately when you leave the store, not, you know, even immediately when you go home. This is really a time when, you know, they're in a good place, maybe after dinner, maybe, you know, Dr. Greene talks about if you have other kids, maybe you put the other kids in front of the TV for, you know, for a half hour while you sit down and talk to your child about these things that have happened. And it's like, listen, you know, I noticed that, you know, you're having difficulty staying by my side in the store. What's up with that? What's going on? And, you know, again, a lot of times kids can't identify it. And so you just need to keep kind of clarifying and reflecting back on it. And so, you know, in the bookstore, and remember to try to take away the behavior piece of it. Like, you know, remember it happened then and I was so embarrassed. Or remember it happened in the bookstore and remember the bookstore owner yelled at you. Remember that, you know, it's not about bringing that all up again. It's really about trying to figure out the solution to the problem. So you've got to really frame it in the fact that you're having difficulty with this, what's up with it, and really identifying the pieces that go into that. You know, as a therapist, I'm already theorizing. I'm already going through the, you know, proprioceptive, vestibular, you know, I'm going through all of my little pieces. But the best thing is to let your child try to come up with that first and try to figure that out. If it's something, and you talk about when you give up, again, you choose your battle. That's not your primary. If you can live with that, then it may not be your priority right now in doing that. So, you know, it's not, again, about giving up on it, because you shouldn't give up on, you know, things that you want to change. If he's not meeting your expectations, don't give up on it ever. You know, but you may not be your priority right now. You may just choose something else. But if you're giving up on it because you don't know where else to go with it, I wouldn't give up on it. You know, it's, you know, you need to keep just, you know, going on with it and trying different collaborative solutions with your child to figure out how you can make this change. Does that help?
And I love this question because it really brings up the component of expected behavior in society. You know, it's one thing to plan C something when, you know, you're just in your house, but oh, you know, what do you look like when you're out in the grocery store, or, you know, you're, I don't know, at the swimming pool and you've decided to plan C something and your kid's doing this thing that's, you know, there's a component of expectation for the parents. There's a component of embarrassment. There's a component of, oh, I feel like I've got to explain myself. And that was a real struggle for me. You know, when my son was diagnosed and I finally realized, wait, he's not neurotypical. I can't be imposing that on him. So that was a struggle for me. I know also, thank you for bringing that up, Sarah. Dr. Greene suggests when the kids get a little older, talking to them ahead of time saying, hey, I'd love to chat with you a little bit today. When's a good time for you? And really get their input in there. So yeah, you don't want them when they're already emotional and you're just leaving the store. So a little bit of planning ahead of time and making it a comfortable conversation for everybody. And I think, oh, just one more thing. I don't know that he explicitly says this, but I would imagine just to tackle one behavior at a time. Don't try to get like 3 or 4 unsolved problems in like a chunk.
He talks about 3. Like he talks about, yeah, he does talk about like, okay, if you've got this whole list, that just try 3 and okay, that's, you know, what the list. But again, if your child only has 3 challenging behaviors, maybe you just do 1. But I just wanted to mention another piece of that, and is making your child say they're sorry. This is my own, this is not Dr. Greene, this is not anything, this is my own personal opinion and personal, is that I don't believe in that. I think that when we have our children say they're sorry, unless they truly feel sorry about what happened, it's just an exercise we put our kids through, and it's more for us and more for society than it is for our child. So I think that if that's what you want to make yourself feel better, and you want, because that's how you want to be represented, go ahead and fight that battle if that's what you want. But, you know, many times, you know, sometimes even here, you know, parents, a child will have done something and the parents bring the kid back to say they're sorry to me. I don't want, because I know the situation and I know they're not sorry. And you know, we'll fight that later. Like, I know that what the situation is. I don't need you to say you're sorry to me just because society says they're supposed to say they're sorry. I want them to feel bad about what they did. I want them to feel bad. And that's part of the relationship. That's part of empathy. That's part of, you know, recognizing your place in life and society and things. And that will come for kids. And so again, we can model it, and you can say you're sorry to the store owner. I'm sorry that my child did that. But as far as bringing them back to say they're sorry, if you don't feel like they're feeling that, I usually don't have my kids do that. And that's my own personal opinion.
Thank you so much. that what made me understand. Thank you.
All right. So for those of y'all who are interested in the school part, Dr. Greene actually has a whole book about it called Lost at School. It's wonderful. It's amazing. Y'all can read through that. If anybody has, and Sarah, I felt like Sarah did a nice brief synopsis on how to get other adults in this. So I don't want to go into school in much detail. If anybody else has some questions, we can entertain those right now. If not, I've definitely got some specific questions that we can toss around that I think some of us might be experiencing. Okay, so, you know, 2 big things, Sarah, that you and I have talked about before, and you touched on this briefly. Whew, and maybe this is a question we need to shelf and give to Dr. Greene. But when you've got a kid who has to do medical things, how do you do CPS with them when they've got to get a needle stuck in their arm, when they've got to do you know, an echocardiogram? Is that the loud one? What's the loud one for the heart? With the tube? I don't know. You know, when the kids have to do something that is really incredibly stressful, how do you do it? So, you know, that's been a big one on my plate that I've been really reflecting on. Another thing is a lot of our kids, they take meds that really agitate and ramp up their stressors. So, you know, they're already on edge because they've got lagging skills, and then you've got a medicine that augments it. So, you know, again, maybe these are teasers for Dr. Greene whenever we get him here. But like I said, just wanted to shine the spotlight on some of the unique components of kids with disabilities in regards to the CPS. Sara, any thoughts on that? And if not, then we can wrap up. And
yeah, no, I don't think they're, you know, we've talked about that. I don't think that they're great, you know, solutions, because bottom line is when you come to those medical kinds of procedures, it's an adult imposing their will on a child. And so there's going to be some resistance a lot of the time. And, but if you have built in some of those skills ahead of time, if you can be proactive about things, and some of that goes into preparation. I don't believe, this is another personal opinion, I don't believe in too much preparation, because I think sometimes we over prepare our children for things like that. And then we increase that anxiety to a point that it didn't need to be there. So I think that we, you know, have to kind of moderate our preparation for those types of things. But if you have a child that's capable of doing that, having, you know, conversations of, listen, this is our annual testing day, and this is what we're going to need to do. So do you know, what can you come up with that can make this day go easier? That will make you more comfortable during this day? And see if they have any idea as well. If I could just, you know, if I could just bring our family dog with us, you know, that would make me feel better. Let me call them and let me see if I can bring them with us so that we can make this day go easier for you. You know, I don't care what they do. I just want to have my iPad with me. You know, screen time, maybe too much screen time for them, but if you've got to get them through this day, that needs to happen. And that is their solution to that. And sometimes that needs to be respected. So those are just some of my thoughts on that.
Magnificent. Well, guys, that was an intense 2 hours. I think we tackled everything, though, and I'm excited whenever again we get Dr. Greene, so that, you know, we've had time to reflect. We can really think about this, and we can give him the really tough stuff. Our next webinar is coming up. It is going to be geared specifically to the Duchenne community, Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Everybody's welcome to come, but we'll be talking about the invisible stressors that a child with Duchenne muscular dystrophy experiences on a daily basis. Some of these stressors that contribute to the explosive behaviors, you know, just slowly ramps them up all day and you don't even recognize it, the emotional, the cognitive, the social stressors. So that'll be with Dr. Natalie Truba, Saturday, June 12th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. I think a lot of what they experience probably overlap with other kids too. Would you say, Sara?
Yes, I do. I think a lot of the stressors, medications, things like that have a lot of carryover. Yeah.
Okay. So again, everybody is welcome to come. It will be geared specifically to Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Dr. Natalie Truba is a psychologist at Nationwide Hospital. She works specifically in the neuromuscular division. So she's got a lot of experience there. I'm really excited about that. I'm going to give some teasers. I'm not going to name names. Should I name names? Should I name names, Sara?
Why not? It's already scheduled. Do it.
We have got some big names coming up, guys. Dr. Siegel, who wrote The Whole Brain Child and Brainstorm, and is it Mind Mapping? Is that right, Sara?
Mindsight.
Thank you, Mindsight. Guys, he's gonna come talk to us July 30th, Friday. I just got all of that confirmed up this week. So keep your eyes open. I'll be emailing everybody about these things. I'll email you guys the links for the upcoming registration. It's right here if you want to pop in and register right now. I will be emailing you guys the link to this video, and I'll take out the resources here that Leon has been popping in for us, all these links, and I'll include those in the emails also.
And whenever Dr. Greene reschedules.
Oh, for sure. Most definitely. I will not keep that a secret. Thank you, guys. this was so good for my heart and soul. I just, you know, when Dr. Greene said he had something else to do, or, you know, he couldn't reschedule, part of me was like, I'm actually really excited about having to pick Sara's brain for 2 hours. This is magnificent. So I'm so grateful that you stepped in and helped out. And guys, you know how to reach us, family, friends, and Duchenne, and Sara's at the T.E.A.M approach. And again, thank you, Leona, Phyllis Law Firm, for sponsoring us. She's wonderful for all of your legal needs, and there's a bunch when you've got kids with disabilities. Thank you guys so much. We'll see y'all later.